ARB Turntables. Too good to be true? Look at it. It's absolutely stunning. It looks like thousands and thousands of pounds worth of turntable. That could easily be a £5 turntable and you wouldn't bat an eyelid. In reality, it costs £450, including the arm, which is just staggering. I've seen these popping up on eBay. Got in touch with the chap that produces them. It says it's not a company, but he makes lots of turntables, so I think you can understand he is actually a company. So we got into discussions about building one for me, and this is what he came up with. It's not unique. There's another one for sale on eBay at the minute, and he was telling me he'd actually made 10 of these now. But this one's all silver, which is what I asked for. So it arrived. The packing was pretty scary, to be honest. It was sort of dumped into a box lined with polystyrene. The polystyrene bits were all over everything. Being Perspex, it's just full of static and stuck to everything. It took me literally an hour to get all of the polystyrene off the thing. And before he dispatched it, he said, oh, there's a mark on the platter. There's some black marker, but don't worry, you can clean it off with white spirit. Which is fair enough, but you'd think he might have cleaned it off with white spirit before sending it. He also said to make sure I put the platter on before fitting the arm because it would tip over. So more about that in a minute. Okay, so we're basically based on a Riga. We've got a Riga sub platter and bearing, Riga motor. The rest of it's handmade, I believe, including the arm. When you get really close to things, you can see it's handmade, because stuff is not square, not flat. Being a unipivot, you can get it all pretty much level and working and take out the bad tolerances in its production. And to be honest, the arm is pretty good. I think given a decent turntable, it would be a pretty good arm. Now the biggest problem is the platter. Well, one of the biggest problems. Let me just turn this off. Because you've got two platters, you've got a thicker platter at the bottom, counterweights, and then this top platter. Well, as you can see, top platter isn't flat. Well, it's either it's not flat or the counterweights are not level. Either way, you end up with what's effectively like all your records are warped because it's not flat. If you take this off, it's sitting on blobs of glue. Now 3 of these I actually found in the box that had just fallen off in the packing because the platter wasn't wrapped. So I've put those back on, centralised them, still can't get it flat in any way. So that's a huge problem. You end up with an audible bump as you're playing records because it's so uneven. Now the really serious problem is the balance. You take the platter off, it tips over. There's so much weight on this side, it won't stay upright without the weight of the platter on it, which is fine, except if you want to change speeds, you have to take the platter off. Now I did report this to Andy, and he suggested putting some kind of leg under the arm. But I did point out the last thing I really wanted was vibrations from the surfaces being directed straight into the arm, which would be like the worst thing you could possibly do when you're trying to have an isolated deck. So that's not going to work. It needs some kind of weight this side. He also suggested some of the others he'd made had acrylic blocks here rather than billet, which would have taken some weight off it. But even then, I'm not sure, to be honest. This arm, although it looks spindly, is quite heavy. It's described as medium mass. I suspect it's a high mass arm, actually, given the weight of it. So unfortunately, as nice as it all looks, the truth of it is you can't make decks like this for £450 and make a decent deck. The one thing it needs to be able to do is to play records properly. It doesn't, so it fails in its most fundamental job. The finishing is pretty poor. The platter, all the Perspex has actually got scratches on it, but I don't really care about that. I could live with that for the price, but I do need it to actually play records and play records well, certainly better than an RP1 that it's based on. Now, having played them back to back, it doesn't. Even with a standard arm on a Riga, it's a better deck. This just is fundamentally flawed in every way. And it's a real shame, because it looks stunning. But the amount of work it obviously takes to make a really good deck that looks like this is why they cost 2-3 grand and not 450 quid. So that's ARB Turntables. You'll see them on eBay quite often. They're always sold as second hand as well, when he's making them new, and I don't really know why that is. It seems a bit of a kind of an odd thing. Maybe it's to do with guarantees or something. Anyway, to be fair to him, he has accepted to take it back. Also, it arrived without the ball bearing for the actual bearing itself, so I couldn't actually play it to start with. There was no offer to, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to put it in, I'll send you one in the post. I ordered one myself in the end, but he did eventually say, oh, do you want me to send you one? Well, obviously I'd want him to send him one, but by that time I'd already ordered another one and fitted it. So just to be able to actually use it out of the box. So all in all, looks lovely, but it's a total disaster. But the arm may well be worth investigating if you fancy a uni-pivot design. They're quite interesting, and I think they can be very, very good. And especially for the money of the whole deck's 450. I mean, the arm must be less than half of that, I would have thought. Worth investigating, but just be careful with these. They look fantastic, but if just any basic turntable will play better, because the platter will be flat, and it needs to be flat. Your records need a flat surface for everything to work on. And if it's not flat, it's no good. And if you can't change the speed without either taking the arm off or having to modify the design or bodge it, really, to be honest, by sticking support arms and things onto it, then that's just fundamentally wrong.